I used to believe that routine was safety. Same wake-up time, same breakfast, same goodbye kiss before Caroline left for work. I'd co-founded an engineering firm from scratch and kept the house steady while she pursued her marketing career. 2 kids, modest home, decent cars, biannual vacations. The sort of life you'd nod at and call stable. Until that morning. I stepped into the upstairs bathroom, barefoot, still bleary from the night. The light knifed through the blinds at an angle it usually didn't, casting long shadows. That's when I saw it. A faint glint in the beige carpet near the sink. I bent down, brushing my fingers over a small foil circle. It was the backing from a pill blister. Tiny, round, the sort you'd see in daily medications. I turned it over. There were letters embossed on it. TU. Tuesday's pill. Strange. It was Wednesday. I didn't take meds. Neither did Caroline, to my knowledge. We were both healthy. Our last annual checkups had been squeaky clean. That ruled out most prescriptions. But this wasn't random. Something about it nagged at me. Familiar. The size, the foil pattern. Then it hit me. Birth control. My stomach dropped. I'd had a vasectomy 2 years ago. After our second kid, Caroline and I agreed 2 was plenty. So why? Why the hell was there a birth control pill in our bathroom? A cold knot settled under my ribs. There are always possible explanations. Maybe an old pack. Maybe something from before the surgery. Maybe she was helping a friend. Maybe. But every maybe came with a question mark carved like a hook. I locked the bathroom door and started searching. Under the sink. Behind the towels. In a tampons box, I found them, a current, open pack of birth control pills. Not expired. Several missing. Days accounted for, too. She'd been taking them consistently. Quietly. I stood there in the pale tile room, clutching the evidence like it was radioactive. Caroline and I had met when I was 25. I was still in grad school, burning out on coffee and linear algebra, and she was the assistant to an exec at a local firm. Sharp. Reserved. She wore confidence like a well-tailored blazer, but underneath that was a particular intensity, one that only surfaced after midnight or during arguments. We married a year after we started dating. 9 years together. 2 kids. A dog who barked at anything larger than a leaf. I'd built a life that looked good on paper. Hell, that felt good. Until this. The first thought that crossed my mind, embarrassingly, was, is she sick? And the second, who's she sleeping with? I didn't confront her. Not then. That would have been premature, emotional, stupid. I needed more. Evidence. Motive. Timeline. So I did what I do best. I planned. I worked through the scenarios like a flowchart. Her boss? Maybe. She respected him. Talked about him often. Bill Wright? Mid-40s, divorced, successful. Too many red flags I'd never read properly. If it was him, then this wasn't some one-night lapse. This would be methodical. Layered. Hidden in plain sight. That day at work, I ordered DNA testing kits. 1 for each kid, 1 for me. Quietly. I also picked out voice recorders and hidden cameras. I knew where to plant them. Our bathroom, our bedroom, her car. The first piece of the puzzle had fallen into my lap. A pill foil, barely reflective in the morning light. But like any good engineer, I knew that one data point wasn't a conclusion. It was just the first spark. Whatever she was hiding, I would expose it. And whoever she was hiding it with, I'd deal with him next. Even if that meant facing the man who signs my paychecks. I sat across from Caroline that night. The pill packet back where I found it, my expression unreadable. She talked about daycare drop-offs, a supplier issue at work, and how Sophie skinned her knee on the monkey bars. I nodded at all the right places. Smiled when I needed to. Laughed even. You'd never guess that 10 hours earlier I was on my knees in our bathroom, holding a pill packet like it was a detonator. I let her play normal. I let her kiss me goodnight. I even let her initiate sex. And the whole time, I was cataloging her every move like she was a lab specimen. The next morning, I played my part. Told her I'd be working late, kissed her cheek, and drove straight to the electronics store. I picked up a burner phone and a cloning kit. Tiny wireless cameras. 2 voice recorders the size of key fobs. The guy behind the counter asked if I was making a movie. I smiled and said something like that. Then came the DNA kits. Swabs. Seals. Prepaid envelopes. No one at the pharmacy questioned a thing. That weekend, Caroline left the kids with me while she went out with Amanda. Amanda, her co-worker, an alibi of convenience. They'd fallen into a pattern. Brunch, shopping, a drink or two. Except I'd once overheard Amanda at a Christmas party saying she hated shopping. So I did what any loving husband would do. I took our kids to the play center, let them run wild for a few hours, came back home, waited. When Caroline came in, I kissed her cheek, asked if Amanda was still rocking those hideous boots. Caroline laughed, too quickly, and nodded. I made a mental note. That night, while she showered, I installed the cameras. One in the bathroom vent, another behind a decorative book on our nightstand, a third under the mantel in the living room. All motion activated, all linked to a flash drive I'd retrieve every few days. The next few days were a blur of surveillance and patience. I watched her, listened to her, waited. Wednesday morning, something changed. She left her purse on the kitchen table while tending to James, our youngest. I noticed the zipper slightly open, a sliver of black plastic peeking out. Another phone. I didn't touch it then. I knew she'd notice if it moved even an inch. But now I knew where she kept it. Later that day, I pretended to take James for a walk. Came back 20 minutes later, rushed inside, and beelined to her bag. The phone was gone. She'd taken to the bathroom while I was out. Smart, but not smart enough. That night, while she slept, I retrieved it from its hiding spot in the bathroom vent. Unlocked. No passcode. She was arrogant or foolish. I couldn't tell which. What I saw inside shattered something in me. Texts, photos, voice memos. They didn't use names, just pet names. Darlin', Bossman, your girl. But then I saw it. A photo of her, clearly taken in our bed. Same sheets, same headboard. She was wearing a lace slip I hadn't seen before. One that wasn't packed in any overnight bag. She was on all fours, looking back at the camera, the angle too perfect for a selfie. Then another photo. A man's torso, shirtless, pale, a mole just above the ribs. I recognized that mole. Bill Wright, my boss, the man I play golf with, the man who gave me paternity leave when James was born. That bastard. Caroline had hidden a second life in our own house, using our own bed. I cloned the phone in minutes, installed tracking software, set it back in place. The next morning, she acted like nothing was different. Made pancakes, kissed the kids, told me she was running late for a strategy meeting at work. She just slept with my boss in our bed, then flipped pancakes like June Cleaver. I didn't confront her. Not yet. The rage was there, but I channeled it into focus. That afternoon, I called in sick. Drove straight to the lab where I'd mailed the DNA samples. Results wouldn't be ready until the weekend, but I had another job to do. I waited in the parking lot of Caroline's office. A modest, glass-paneled building with red brick accents. I watched her go in. 30 minutes later, a familiar BMW pulled up. Bill Wright, wearing a navy jacket and sunglasses like he thought he was subtle. I watched him walk in. No briefcase, no laptop, just swagger. I waited. 45 minutes later, she came out. Alone, smiling. I followed her car to a hotel near the highway. Mid-tier, not the kind you take a client to, the kind you take a mistress to. She parked, walked in. 2 minutes later, he arrived. They didn't come back out for 2 hours. When they did, they left separately. She returned to work. He headed the other way. That night, she came home and asked how my day was. I told her it was productive. She smiled. Good. Mine too. I've got her phone, her pills, her lover. The only thing left to confirm is the paternity of the children. And when I know that, I'll flip the whole board over. By Friday, I'd become a machine. No more doubts, no more hesitation. The house was wired. Her second phone was cloned. The paper trail was gathering like a storm front. I wasn't sure what I'd do when the DNA results came in, but I knew what I needed, the truth. Clean, surgical, no emotions. Michelle, my assistant at the firm, noticed the change in me before anyone else. She didn't ask at first, just adjusted schedules and blocked my calendar with a precision that mirrored my own internal reprogramming. But Friday morning, she brought 2 coffees into my office and quietly shut the door behind her. I don't want to cross a line, Gary, she said gently, but something's wrong. You're too measured. I looked at her. Michelle had always struck me as one of those women who got mistaken for weak until you watch her walk through fire and not flinch. Divorced. No kids. Knew every legal loophole in our partnership contracts. You ever find out someone you love is a stranger? I asked. Her expression didn't shift. She just placed the second coffee on my desk. I've lived that chapter. You want the Cliff Notes or the war stories? Let's start with the preface, I said. That night, she and I sat in the conference room long after the lights went out and the cleaning staff had left. I showed her the clone phone, the texts, the pictures, the emails from Bill's private account. Clever enough to evade IT filters, but not clever enough to cover his tracks. He's your boss, Michelle said, scrolling through Caroline's messages. He was my mentor, I replied. And now he's dead to me. I'm just figuring out how to bury the body without going to prison. Her lips twitched. I assume metaphorically. I stared at her without answering. Michelle handed the phone back and stood. I know a lawyer, she said. Friend of mine. Divorce strategist. Surgical. If you're serious about this, and you look serious, she's your next call. Is she discreet? She's a goddamn vault. And she hates cheaters. Saturday morning, I dropped the kids at my sister's under the pretense of a surprise errand for their mother. Caroline was at the gym, or so she claimed. I returned home to swap out the flash drives from the cameras and plug them into my laptop. The footage was uneventful. Normal routines. Caroline folding laundry, helping the kids with homework. Then, around midnight Thursday night, she entered the bathroom with her phone, the real one. She stared into the mirror, then lowered the phone to take a photo. She posed. Not for me. Never for me. I clicked ahead. She left the bathroom, went to the hallway, and slipped the phone into the air duct near James's room. Clever, but not clever enough. I cloned it again, faster this time, now that I knew her pattern. The next day, the DNA results arrived in my email. I sat at my desk in the office, door locked, blinds drawn. Michelle stood beside me. I didn't ask her to stay. She just stayed. I clicked the link. Paternity report. Subject 1, not a biological match. Subject 2, not a biological match. Both children, not mine. There's a particular kind of pain that doesn't make a sound. It doesn't howl or sob or even breathe. It just settles into your bones like a second skeleton, one made of ash and shattered glass. Michelle didn't say anything. She just placed a hand on my shoulder. Want to take a walk? She asked after a few minutes. No, I said. I want to go see Lorraine. The lawyer. Lorraine was everything Michelle promised. Direct. Ruthless. A velvet guillotine in heels. You're not the first man to walk into my office with betrayal etched into his face, she said, tapping her pen against a legal pad. But most of them come in drunk or desperate. You look like you're writing a thesis on vengeance. I am. She grinned. Then let's talk strategy. We discussed surveillance legality, financial shielding, custody implications now that the kids weren't biologically mine. The prenup. Thank God for the prenup. I'd forgotten we'd signed it when I started the company. It insulated all corporate assets. She'd only be entitled to my salary and personal savings. I told Lorraine about Bill, Caroline's boss. She leaned back and whistled. Office romance with a subordinate violates half a dozen HR policies. If we get proof, we can bring it to the board. Make it public. He'll lose his job. And her. She'll be lucky to keep her name off a lawsuit. We mapped out every angle. The financial traps. The public scandal. The private leverage. Every chess move came with 3 consequences, and I was willing to accept each one. Then Michelle handed Lorraine the flash drive with the videos. This one's from Thursday night, she said. Lorraine played it. It was the footage from the front hallway. Bill entering our house with a key. Caroline greeting him in a robe. They kissed like teenagers. My son, James, called out from upstairs, "Hi, Papa Bill." I stood. I didn't say anything. I didn't scream or throw anything. I just stood. Michelle touched my arm. We could take them both down, Gary. Just say the word. I looked at her. My voice was low, like I had to crawl through broken glass to reach the air. Then let's burn it all down. There's something obscene about returning to a house that isn't yours anymore. Not because your name's off the deed, but because every photo frame, every pillow, every refrigerator magnet feels like a lie. That Sunday evening, I pulled in the driveway just before sunset. Caroline's car was parked out front, like always. Kids' bikes leaned against the garage. Our neighbor across the street waved as she watered her hydrangeas. It looked normal. It was anything but. I walked inside. Caroline was folding laundry in the living room. She looked up and smiled, as if nothing in her world had shifted. As if she hadn't let another man, my boss, walk through our front door and kiss our son goodnight. "You're home early," she said. "Portland trip get canceled?" "No," I said smoothly, shrugging off my jacket. Wrapped up quicker than expected. She kissed my cheek like it was an automatic gesture. "We missed you." I looked at her. Really looked. She didn't flinch. I gave her credit for that. "You okay?" she asked, catching the delay in my silence. "Just tired," I murmured. We moved through the evening like actors who knew their lines too well. Dinner, dishes, bath time, story time. Her voice cracked a little when reading to Sophie, but I couldn't tell if it was fatigue or guilt. Maybe both. Maybe neither. That night, we lay in bed. Her back to me, my eyes fixed on the ceiling. The fan rotated above like a slow metronome, ticking towards some invisible deadline. "Didn't sleep well while you were gone," she said softly. I didn't reply. I couldn't trust my voice. The next morning, I slipped out early. Not to work. Not yet. I had one more card to play, and it required diplomacy. Her name was Stephanie Wright, Bill's wife. She lived in a gated community across town. The kind of place where Range Rovers outnumbered Toyotas. I've been to a few corporate mixers there, watched Bill pour expensive scotch like it was tap water, while Stephanie entertained with a tight smile and a slightly glazed expression. She opened the door before I knocked twice. "Gary," she said flatly, "you're not here for Bill." "No." She didn't move to invite me in, but she didn't shut the door either. "I need 5 minutes," I said. "You've got 3. We sat in her sunroom. Clean lines, minimalist decor. The kind of sterile beauty that comes from too much money and too little warmth. "I think your husband is sleeping with my wife," I began. She didn't blink, didn't even raise an eyebrow. "I know," she said simply. My silence was sharper than her words. "He's done this before," she added. "But Caroline's different. He's never brought one into our house. Never talked about her like she mattered. You knew. Suspected. Now I'm sure." I reached into my coat pocket and slid the flash drive across the glass table. I have footage of them in my house, with my son calling him Papa Bill. For the first time, her mask cracked. "That son of a bitch," she whispered. I let the silence stretch. "You're not going to tell him you know yet, are you?" she asked. "No." "Good. He deserves to choke on it." We made a quiet pact then, forged not out of alliance, but mutual betrayal. She'd stay quiet until I gave the signal. In return, she'd give me something I didn't even know I needed. "Did you know Bill put your wife on the partnership track last year?" "What?" Stephanie nodded, stood, and retrieved a folder from a side table. She dropped it in front of me. Internal documents from the company. I skimmed the pages. "Caroline, mentorship program, performance bonuses, pre-approval for travel reimbursements, special project assignments, all signed by Bill. He was grooming her, not just for his bed, but for power. He wants her as more than a mistress," Stephanie said. "He's preparing her to take my place at work. At home. Maybe both." The nausea hit like a body blow. This wasn't just betrayal. This was a goddamn replacement plan. "I assume you have a lawyer?" she asked. "I have 2. "Good. You're going to need both." I stood, processing the weight of what I'd learned. She walked me to the door. "One more thing," she said. "Bill has a safe in his office. Bottom drawer, left side. Fingerprint access and a backup key. He keeps everything." "What kind of everything?" "Contracts, private emails, flash drives, photos, even cash." "How do you know?" She smiled bitterly. "Because I helped him pick it out. And once, I watched him open it when he thought I was asleep." She handed me a key on a small brass chain. "You didn't get it from me." "I don't even know your name," I said. She closed the door without another word. That afternoon, I returned to work. Michelle was waiting in my office with a brown paper bag containing 2 sandwiches and a single line of dialogue. "Well, she's on my side," I said, "and she just gave me the keys to the kingdom." Michelle's smile was grim. "Then let's take it." I waited until Thursday. The day Bill always left early for his so-called networking lunches. Same cigar bar, same table, same routine. I watched him leave the office from behind the tinted glass of the corner conference room. He walked with that same smug bounce in his step, the one I used to admire. I didn't even wait for the elevator to come back up. Took the stairs two at a time to the executive floor. Michelle trailed behind me, clipboard in hand, the perfect illusion of business as usual. We were just two professionals heading into a meeting. She stood watch near the corner while I stepped into Bill's office. It smelled like cedar and cologne. Overpriced. Manufactured masculinity. The safe was where Stephanie said it would be, bottom left drawer, flush against the cabinet wall, just wide enough to be easily overlooked. Fingerprint scanner, glowing soft blue. But the keyhole was waiting for the betrayal only a spouse could deliver. I slid the brass key into the slot. It turned with an oddly satisfying click. The safe hissed open, and there it was. Not stacks of cash, not gold bars or blackmail folders. No, Bill Wright kept trophies. A hard drive labeled CC, Caroline's initials. Printed photos. I recognized Caroline's blouse in one. The green one I bought her 2 Christmases ago. Her hair was longer. She was on her knees. I didn't look at the rest. 3 sealed envelopes. 2 labeled partnership track, private, one with Caroline's name, the other with someone else's. The third had no label, just a return address to a law firm in Houston. I opened it. A draft of a private contract. Bill's name, Caroline's name, an NDA, non-disclosure agreement with explicit clauses about intimate relations and company conflicts of interest, and a section that chilled me. Provision for relocation and severance in the event of pregnancy or paternity dispute. My hands trembled, not from emotion, from restraint. I pocketed the hard drive, took photos of the rest, then reset everything exactly as it had been. "You okay?" Michelle asked as I locked the door behind me. "No, but I would be." Back in my office, I connected the hard drive to an air-gapped laptop. No network, no chance of remote deletion. Michelle stood behind me as I opened the folders. The man was meticulous. Emails, videos, voicemails, hidden camera footage, some from hotels, some from inside office spaces. Caroline was in several, but so were others. At least 3 other women from our firm. 2 of them married, one of them in HR. "I can't believe this stayed buried," Michelle whispered. It didn't. He just knew how to bury the people who got close. There was one video file titled C and AMP, G-Plan. I clicked it. Bill's voice. Caroline's, too. A conversation recorded by Bill himself, maybe out of vanity, maybe insurance. "I told him I wanted a 3rd kid," she says. "And he believed you?" Of course. The vasectomy was his idea, but I made it sound like I was having second thoughts. That made it easier to justify the pill. "You're good," Bill laughs. "I have to be. He thinks he's the puppet master. But really, he's just another string." She laughed then. That laugh, the one I used to love. It sounded like a weapon now. I paused the video, turned to Michelle. "Still want to take them down?" She didn't answer with words. She grabbed her phone and called Lorraine, the lawyer. "Begin the filings," she said. Nuclear. That night, I didn't go home. I drove. Nowhere specific. Just asphalt, cold coffee, and white lines blurring past my window. I ended up at a lookout point west of the city, high enough to see the skyline lit like a circuit board. I watched the city that had cradled my life, the job, the house, the kids, the lies, and wondered how I missed it all. And then I realized something. I hadn't missed it. They just built it all behind me, brick by careful brick, while I was too busy holding up the front. I was the scaffolding. Now it was time to tear the whole thing down. Monday morning came like the slow pull of a trigger. By 9 a.m., the courthouse had stamped Lorraine's paperwork. The divorce filing, the child custody contestation, the complaint to HR regarding fraternization at the firm, even a notice to freeze assets and restrict Caroline's access to any joint accounts. All backed with evidence, photos, and one very damning video file from Bill's own safe. I had no intention of delivering the news quietly. "I want her served at her office," I told Lorraine that Friday. "I want the whole glass building to see it." Lorraine had smirked. "Public embarrassment doesn't hold up in court, Gary." "It's not for court," I said. "It's for me." And that's when Michelle, half joking, had said. Well, short of Super Bowl billboard. It stuck. I made a few calls. Old client favors. A friend in digital advertising. Another in event staging. Cost me nearly 10 grand, but it was worth every cent. That Monday, 10 a.m. sharp, a 40-foot LED screen lit up across the street from Caroline's office. The same office where she'd kissed Bill right against the lobby wall at least 3 times, according to the footage. The screen played a single loop. Caroline Adams, senior marketing executive, wife, mother of 2, engaged in a 2-year affair with her direct superior, William Wright, CEO, while her husband raised 2 children fathered by another man. We hope HR enjoys the footage. Gee, no photo, no profanity, just cold facts in white text on black background. Minimal, clean, devastating. I didn't watch it live. Michelle did. She parked across the street in a coffee shop and called me the moment the first reaction rippled. She just came out, Michelle reported. Stopped cold in the parking lot, staring. And Bill, still inside. But the HR director just walked past him with 2 men from legal. Gary, I think it's happening. Good. I sat in my office, watching nothing, just letting it all come to me in waves. Not triumph, not vengeance. Just silence. I finally picked up my phone and opened the security app linked to our home cameras. Caroline had fled work and gone home. I watched her enter, frantic, checking drawers, the vent in James's room. Her second phone was gone. She knew, and yet she still called me. Caroline, mobile 12 missed calls. Then a text. Please come home. We need to talk. I can explain. No, you explained enough in that recording. You explained when you called me predictable and said I was easy to manipulate. You explained when you let him into our kids' lives. My phone buzzed again. This time, a number I didn't recognize. Voicemail. I played it. Bill. Gary, listen. I think we need to sit down and talk like men. There's no need for all this. We can sort this out. You're angry. I get it. Let's handle this privately. Like professionals. I deleted the message before it ended. There was no professional fix for this. By noon, Bill had been escorted out of the building. Caroline's office was sealed. The firm had issued a no-comment statement. HR launched a full internal review. Stephanie, Bill's wife, called me later. That was cold, she said. Elegant. I didn't think you'd go through with it. You didn't see what he had in the safe, I said. I don't need to, she replied. I know him. You just made it very, very expensive for him to keep lying. That was the only language he ever understood. And Caroline? She sent one last message. You blindsided me. I wish we could have done this differently. I never stopped loving you. I just made mistakes. I hope for the kids we can find a way back. There was no back. That night, I returned home. She was still there, somehow believing we could talk. She met me in the kitchen, eyes red, mascara a mess, holding on to hope like a tattered flag. You don't have to destroy me, she whispered. You did that yourself, I said, brushing past her. The kids were asleep. I didn't want them to see me like this. She reached for my hand. Please, Gary, they still need us. Together. I turned to her. They're not mine. The words landed like a gunshot. She stumbled back a step. You did a test? I nodded. Both of them. Not mine. Same father. Same liar. Her knees gave out, and she collapsed into a chair. How long did you know? She asked. Long enough to make a plan. She covered her mouth. Cried. Then sobbed. I just watched. The part of me that wanted to hold her was already dead. They say war doesn't determine who's right, only who's left. Turns out, after you take the shot, you're still standing. But the smoke doesn't clear. It just settles, lingers, finds cracks to slip through and choke what little peace you thought you'd earned. That night, after I told Caroline the truth about the kids, the test, the billboard, she broke. Not with rage, but something worse. Shame. I had expected denial. A counterattack. Something. But she didn't fight. She just fell apart. I didn't plan it that way, she kept repeating. Didn't plan the lies. Didn't plan the kids. Didn't plan to fall for a man with more power than sense. But she executed it all, didn't she? Methodical. Strategic. Secretive. A part of me almost pitted her. The other part wanted to torch every wedding photo and salt the ashes. I didn't spend the night at the house. Instead, I drove to Michelle's. She didn't say a word when she opened the door. Just stepped aside to let me in, a blanket and a glass of water already on the table beside the couch. I'm not here for comfort, I told her. I didn't offer any, she replied. Fair enough. But in the middle of the night, I woke up gasping, a dream of James calling me Dad, then turning into Bill and laughing. I sat up, fists clenched. Michelle was already in the hallway, silhouetted by the bathroom light. You okay? She asked. No. She sat beside me. You will be. I stared at the ceiling. How do you let go of kids who were never yours? Michelle didn't answer right away. You don't, she said eventually. You just let go of the lie that they were, and figure out if what's left is still love. That was the thing. I did not love them. I still felt it, raw and ragged, every time I saw their faces. But they were souvenirs now, flesh and blood mementos of betrayal. Still, they were innocent. Monday morning, Lorraine called with an update. Bill's firm launched an internal investigation. HR pulled phone records, emails, the whole 9 yards. He's suspended. Caroline, too. Suspended, I said. Not fired. They're bleeding. It's just slow. Make it faster. We're also ready to serve the second motion, she continued. Custody and paternity contestation. Once it's in front of the judge, Caroline will have 30 days to respond. And the kids, that's the tricky part. She was right. The law doesn't see blood the same way betrayal does. I was still their legal father, and unless I challenged that directly, Caroline could argue for joint custody, even demand alimony. The kids had my name, my medical insurance, my everything. Michelle stepped in. What if you leave the door open? Don't fight for custody, don't walk away. Just freeze it. I looked at her. Keep them off the battlefield, she said softly. That day, I returned home. Not to Caroline. To them. James ran into my arms, oblivious. Sophie asked why I'd been gone. I made up something about work, her eyes bright and trusting. Caroline stood in the hallway like a ghost watching someone else live the life she ruined. Can we talk? She asked. I nodded but didn't move from the floor. James was showing me a drawing. Me, him, and a giant red dinosaur. I almost cried when I saw it. I was still Dad in crayon. After bedtime, I followed Caroline into the kitchen. She looked thinner. Not physically, something else had shrunk. Whatever armor she'd worn during the affair, it had cracked. I don't want this to destroy the kids, she said. Too late. I mean, their future, their stability. I don't care what happens to me. I raised an eyebrow. That's new. She took it. Didn't flinch. I'll agree to anything. You want the house? Take it. You want the kids full time? I'll write it. You want to disappear? I won't chase you. I studied her. What about him? She swallowed. Bill's done. He was already falling apart before this. He used me. I let him. I almost laughed. You let him into my house. Into our bed. I don't care if he used you. You used me. She nodded, tears dripping silently. Why didn't you tell me sooner? Why wait? I leaned in. Because you wouldn't have believed me. And I wanted you to feel the fall. Every inch of it. That week, the press picked up the Billboard story. Some anonymous source leaked the footage to a journalist. Not me, but I didn't stop it. Bill's name trended for a full day. Then the silence came. The kind that ends careers. Caroline took unpaid leave. She stayed with her sister, barely contacting the kids. I kept things normal. Routine. No more cameras. No more tracking apps. Just bedtime stories and Lego battles. One night, Sophie asked, Are you and Mommy still mad? I hesitated. We're figuring things out, I said. James chimed in. I think you're still the best dad. That one broke me. I tucked them in, walked into the kitchen, and cried into the sink. The hardest part wasn't the betrayal. It was the after. It was brushing Sophie's hair while she asked if I could still come to her school play, even though Mommy says we might not live in the same house forever. It was watching James draw pictures of me and Caroline and label them team. It was knowing I could burn everything down and wondering if it would leave anything behind that was worth the fire. Caroline didn't fight the divorce. Not once. Lorraine said it was the easiest filing she'd ever processed. No contest, no claims to the business, no attempt to poison the well. She knew what she'd done. I gave her the house. Not as a mercy, as a trap. I refinanced it under her name alone, inflated the mortgage, and folded the equity into the business. She could keep it and the debt. The kids? I didn't terminate my parental rights. I couldn't. They weren't mine by blood, but they were mine in the ways that mattered when it counted. On the nights they were sick, the mornings we danced to 80s music in the kitchen, the way James still called my old flannel his superhero cape. Instead, I signed a limited custody agreement. Weekends, alternating holidays. No child support either way. Not until I decided. It bought me time. Time to heal. Time to decide what kind of man I wanted to be after the fire. The company? That was easier. Robert, my old business partner, signed his shares over to the new Nevada corporation we'd set up. The business was now legally owned by a trust. I was still CEO, but I drew only a nominal salary, just enough to cover rent, food, and the occasional bottle of scotch. Bill Wright was officially removed from his position 6 weeks after the scandal broke. He signed a non-disclosure agreement to protect the firm, but Stephanie, his wife, leaked just enough to bury him in every industry circle that mattered. Last I heard, he was trying to start a consultancy in Arizona. Caroline sent me one letter. Typed. No signature. I know I can never undo what I did. I'll carry it. But if you ever want to talk, really talk, I'm here. No defense. No spin. Just truth. Caroline. I never replied. But I kept the letter. Not out of hope. Not even out of sentiment. Just as a record. Because if there's one thing this taught me, it's that people bury the truth to survive. And sometimes we need to dig it up just to remember who we are. Last month, I took James and Sophie on a trip. Just the three of us. A cabin by the lake. No screens. No noise. We fished. We laughed. I taught James how to skip a stone. Sophie read to me by firelight, pausing to explain big words like she was the teacher and I was the student. On the last night, I asked them, "Do you know how much I love you?" James nodded. Bigger than space. Sophie added, "More than real dads." That one stuck in my ribs. I didn't correct her. I just pulled them both in and held on longer than I should have. Michelle still works beside me. Same sharp eyes. Same steady presence. We haven't crossed any lines, despite the long nights, the unspoken things. But something lingers there, not romance. Something rarer. Mutual survival. We don't speak of the past often. But sometimes, when the office is quiet, she'll ask me, "Do you regret anything?" And I always give the same answer. Not yet. And that's the story. The husband, the wife, the boss. All of it came down, brick by brick, like a house made of matches. But somehow, in the ashes, I found something that survived. A new life, a leaner love, and the quiet strength of a man who refused to go down with the lie. Because in the end, vengeance wasn't the goal. Clarity was. And I got it.